The leather chair at center stage reflected a wash of white light from the ceiling rig. Not stage lighting, not an interrogation spotlight. Just a neutral kind of light, too clear to hide beneath, too bright to step back from. The forum, held at Georgetown University, was broadcast live nationwide. It wasn't a debate. It felt more like a vetting. 2 featured guests took the stage. Karoline Leavitt, former White House press aide and the fast-rising voice of the conservative youth movement, and Representative Jasmine Crockett, attorney, federal legislator, and one of the sharpest minds in education reform. The auditorium was full, but quiet, alert. The moderator introduced the session. Karoline smiled, turned slightly toward Jasmine, and began. I respect Representative Crockett's presence here, but to be candid, I don't believe she has the qualifications necessary to lead a national reform initiative. No interruptions, no gasps, just silence, a kind of stillness that spread, as if the room had just heard something it wasn't sure it had permission to react to. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't look at Karoline. She didn't even blink. Her eyes remained forward, waiting, or maybe counting something unseen. In the sound booth, the technician monitored the waveform. Both mics were live. Perfect audio, he whispered. But he knew it wasn't just a sound check. It was a line. And Jasmine had just been placed on the other side of it, expected to prove she was worthy of the room she had already earned. No one remembers exactly when the phrase qualified enough became a scalpel in political media. It doesn't sound like an insult. It requires no evidence. Just say someone lacks the qualifications, and suddenly they carry the burden of disproving a fog. In politics, it's a line that sounds neutral, clean, but it bleeds all the same. Jasmine Crockett knew that, not from textbooks, but from repetition. 2 years earlier, she'd appeared on a 4-person panel for the first time. 3 white professionals, 1 Jasmine. When she cited disparities in public school budgets, the host cut her off. If I may, we'll return to that. Let's first hear from someone with real policy experience. The next speaker, a former consultant who had never worked in education. Jasmine stayed quiet, not because she lacked a reply, but because she understood, once framed as emotional, even truth sounds like overreaction. A day later, a political blog ran the headline. Jasmine Crockett, passionate, but still politically immature. No one asked, who defines maturity? Then came Karoline. While Jasmine worked late into the night drafting legislation, Karoline was on television every week talking about bluntness and why feelings had no place in governance. Karoline had studied journalism, became a White House press secretary at 23. She was fast, composed, unshaken. Each sentence was delivered like a final verdict. When Jasmine and Karoline first shared a stage, it wasn't a dialogue. It was a collision. Karoline had said then, I respect Representative Crockett's passion, but passion is not a substitute for professionalism. Emotions don't build systems. And the host had pivoted before Jasmine could reply. Backstage at Georgetown, someone else had been watching. Her name was Layla Tiar, a senior television production major, interning as an audio technician. She had clipped the mics on both women. While miking Karoline, Layla heard her whisper to her aide. She'll react. I just need to guide it there. But with Jasmine, Layla asked simply, Would you like me to double-check the mic? Jasmine smiled. Quietly. No need. I don't plan on speaking too loudly. Layla nodded, but something in her chest tugged. Why, she thought, is only one person preparing to be interrupted? As Karoline walked through the pre-show routines, adjusting lighting angles, practicing gestures, Jasmine remained seated in the corner, quietly reading a single folded sheet of paper. The director, Mr. Henry, observed both from a distance. She's rehearsing a performance, he said, glancing at Karoline. Then toward Jasmine, he added, and she's preparing not to be erased. In the production booth, one tech asked, If it gets tense, should we switch the feed or fade the mic? Henry responded flatly, No cuts, no fade. If people can't handle the sound, they weren't ready for the truth anyway. Layla caught that line. She slipped her headset on and whispered to herself, I hope, for once, the mic catches the moment that matters. When the red light blinked, Both women were seated. Karoline adjusting her cufflink, Jasmine folding the paper and slipping it away. The moderator began. We agree that education reform is urgent, but the question is, who's doing it best? Karoline leaned into the mic, wasting no time. Let me be clear. Education doesn't need more activists. It needs operators. No direct attack. Just enough to exclude Jasmine without naming her. She continued, I respect Representative Crockett's passion, but passion without policy is like fire with no containment. It burns but builds nothing. Subtle nods in the audience. A faint laugh. Scribbles on notepads. Jasmine did not move. Karoline pressed on. I've sat in the West Wing. I've seen what moves budgets. Symbolism and slogans don't do it. Real change requires real competence. The host looked at Jasmine, about to open the floor. But Jasmine barely shook her head once. Karoline smiled and added, I suppose silence is safer when the argument isn't on your side. That line crossed the invisible threshold. Not profane, but surgically designed to diminish. In the booth, the director stopped breathing. Camera 2 zoomed in on Jasmine. She inhaled, once. Layla whispered, mix clear. Karoline seized the silence. If you were given a $5 billion budget for education, what would you do in 30 days? She asked Jasmine directly. The host hesitated, then gestured. Representative Crockett? Jasmine placed her hand on the desk. No folder. No notes. Then, quietly, I'd first check who in this system believes they have the right to ask that question. Not a rebuttal. A recalibration. A pause fell over the room, dense and deliberate. Karoline's foot tapped once. Then again. No one followed up. The host cleared his throat. Let's move on to federal roles in education. But the room hadn't moved on. The clip was already spreading online. At Civics Now posted. She didn't answer. She redefined the frame. Pinned comment. Karoline came with tactics. Jasmine brought a mirror. Back in the studio, Karoline tried to pivot again. Let's remember, numbers won't change just because we feel something deeply. Still, Jasmine remained composed. Then, she reached into her purse. Not for notes. For a USB drive. The host looked at her. Is there something you'd like to share? She nodded. Just a clip. 41 seconds. No edits. Karoline tensed. I don't know what this is, but I haven't authorized anything. Jasmine slid the drive across the table. The director gestured. Layla plugged it in. The screen faded to black. A caption appeared. Leavitt campaign, June. Internal strategy session. Then the voice began. Karoline. Clear. Controlled. Crockett will react. They always do. That's what her base expects. When she loses control, look straight into the camera. Call it lack of leadership. Simple. The room froze. Karoline lifted her hand. That's an internal strategy clip. It's not illegal. But the audio continued. I don't care how many degrees she has. Emotion is weakness. And if she's weak, she doesn't get to lead. Then silence. The screen went black. Karoline opened her mouth, but the mic let out a high-pitched screech. Muted. The director didn't unmute her immediately. No apology followed. Jasmine didn't blink. I've had that recording for a week, she said. At first, I didn't want to use it. But then I remembered. Natural conversations only feel natural when you're the one choosing the script. Karoline clenched the table's edge. That's out of context. Jasmine nodded. You're right. It's not the whole story, but it reveals exactly how you plan to tell it. Across the country, the clip went viral. No edits. No captions. No colors. Just Karoline's voice. Call it lack of leadership. In Representative Crockett's office, her assistant opened an inbox packed with messages. But one email stood out. No name. No subject. Just one line. Silence is also a form of lying. Jasmine read it and closed her eyes. That line. It was hers. 4 years ago, she had written it on a student's paper. Her name, Talia Breener. Jasmine had taught a class on law, public discourse, and the right to remain silent. Talia had written her final paper. Power, Media, and the Training of Voicelessness. Jasmine's handwritten comment still rested at the bottom of that essay. You won't be welcome for asking the right questions, but ask anyway. Talia had never forgotten. When she sat in that campaign strategy meeting, hearing Karoline's cold calculus, she clenched her jaw and recorded. No plan. Until she saw Jasmine was scheduled to speak at Georgetown. She sent the clip anonymously. No name. No signature. Just one act of refusal. That night, Talia didn't watch the broadcast. But when she returned home, her inbox overflowed. From one former classmate. You knew what was right, because she once taught you how to see it. At Jasmine's office, no celebration. Just a quiet meeting. Jasmine placed a printed email at the center. They didn't do it to expose someone. They did it to stop hiding themselves. In Alabama, a local TV station changed its policy. All mics now require independent verification. No more mics as weapons. Only tools for truth. At a student summit at Howard, Jasmine told the audience. When I was 16, someone said I spoke too fast to be a lawyer. At 21, I smiled too much for TV. And now, I'm too emotional to lead. But this time, I didn't raise my voice. I just let them hear their own. No standing ovation, just silence. But a silence no one dared interrupt. Because this time, the mic was on the right side. And no one could turn it off,